The spa's lounge glowed with soft golden light, scented with lavender and eucalyptus. Plush white chairs lined the room, and the quiet trickle of a fountain filled the silence between hushed conversations. It was a place designed for calm, a sanctuary for those who could afford its exclusivity. Ava Hudson sat in one of the corner chairs, wrapped in a simple white robe, a magazine resting loosely in her lap. Her posture was relaxed, her expression serene. She had been here countless times, though no one around her seemed to notice. To most of the other guests, she was just another woman unwinding in luxury. The illusion broke when a wealthy guest walked in. She was tall, draped in designer silk, her heels clicking against the marble floor as if the spa itself were her runway. The receptionist greeted her warmly, but her attention snagged almost instantly on Ava. The woman's smile soured. She paused, gave a quick once-over, and then frowned deeply. Loud enough for half the room to hear, she said, "Excuse me, why is she here?" She gestured sharply in Ava's direction, her tone coated in disdain. The receptionist blinked, caught off guard. "Madam, all our guests." "I pay for exclusivity," the woman interrupted. "I come here to be with my peers, not." Her voice dropped to a cutting whisper, but everyone could hear it. People who clearly don't belong. A few heads turned. Some guests shifted uncomfortably in their chairs, others pretended to focus harder on their tea. Ava looked up slowly, her calm gaze meeting the woman's with quiet steadiness. She said nothing, not yet. But inside, a familiar sting pricked at her chest, the sting of being judged before being known. The receptionist stammered, unsure how to respond. The woman folded her arms, her voice sharp as glass. "Either she leaves, or I will." The room went silent. All eyes flicked toward Ava, waiting to see what she would do. Ava Hudson had never looked like the kind of woman people expected to see in a luxury spa. At least, not in the way their narrow imaginations painted the picture. She didn't wear her wealth on her sleeve, no flashy jewelry, no designer logos splashed across her clothes. What she carried instead was a quiet confidence, built through years of struggle and vision. She grew up far from the polished marble floors of high-end resorts. Her childhood home was a small two-bedroom apartment where the heater rattled in the winter and the neighborhood grocery store closed early for safety. But even there, Ava found beauty. As a little girl, she would mix her grandmother's herbs into makeshift lotions, stirring them in jars and imagining she was creating something magical. By her 20s, Ava had turned that childhood fascination into a real ambition. She studied business at night while working during the day, saving every dollar she could. Along the way, she met Elena, a marketing expert who shared her vision of creating something bold, a wellness brand that wasn't just about pampering, but about dignity. Together, they dreamed of building a company that blended natural care with elegance, luxury with soul. The early years were brutal. Investors dismissed them. Suppliers underestimated them. Some even suggested they find a different niche, as if luxury was a world reserved for someone else. But Ava pushed forward. She perfected formulas, designed packaging, and told a story no one could ignore, a story of resilience, healing, and self-worth. 10 years later, that story had blossomed into a brand known around the world. Their spas were in New York, Paris, Dubai, synonymous with sophistication. Clients paid thousands for memberships, never knowing that the woman behind it all sometimes still preferred the comfort of a robe and a cup of herbal tea over diamond necklaces and champagne. And so, when Ava sat in the spa that day, quiet and unassuming, she carried more than a magazine and a robe. She carried the weight of her journey, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that every inch of this space, from the scent in the air to the softness of the chairs, existed because she had once dared to dream it. Which made the woman's demand to have her removed sting all the more. The air in the lounge grew taut, as if even the lavender-scented candles couldn't soften the tension now hanging in the room. The wealthy guest, her silk shawl draped dramatically over her shoulders, turned sharply toward the receptionist. "I said I don't want her here," she snapped, pointing at Ava as though she were an intruder rather than a guest. "I pay for exclusivity. If you want to keep my business, you'll do as I say." The receptionist flushed, torn between duty and discomfort. "Madam, every client here is entitled to—" "Don't you dare lecture me," the woman cut in, her voice rising. A few guests glanced up from their tea, their brows furrowed. Others shifted uneasily, pretending to look at their phones while clearly listening. The woman leaned closer, her tone sharp and commanding. "I'll pay double. Triple, if that's what it takes. Just get her out of here. People like that ruin the atmosphere." Her words cracked through the calm like broken glass. Ava remained still, her robe folded neatly around her, her magazine closed on her lap. Outwardly, she appeared composed, even serene. But inside, the familiar ache stirred, a mix of weariness and fire. How many times had she felt this before? To be judged, dismissed, treated as if she didn't belong. She lifted her gaze, meeting the woman's eyes with quiet steadiness. There was no anger, no raised voice, only the calm weight of someone who had weathered storms before. The manager, who had been alerted by the receptionist, arrived just in time to hear the last words. He forced a polite smile and said carefully, "Madam, I assure you, all of our guests have every right to be here. No exceptions." The guest scoffed, folding her arms. "Then you'll lose me as a client." The room had grown utterly silent. All eyes flicked between the furious customer, the nervous staff, and Ava, the woman at the center of it all, who had yet to say a word. But her silence was not weakness. It was patience. And soon, she knew, the truth would speak louder than any insult. The manager stepped forward, his tone calm but firm, like someone balancing on a tightrope. "Madam," he said to the guest, "please understand, our spa prides itself on welcoming clients equally. Everyone here has earned the right to enjoy this space." The woman scoffed, her voice dripping with entitlement. "Welcoming clients equally? That's all well and good for a public pool. But I pay for luxury. For exclusivity. And she," her finger cut the air toward Ava, "is not part of that picture." A ripple of unease passed through the room. A couple sipping tea exchanged glances. Another guest cleared her throat, as if fighting the urge to say something. The receptionist shifted from foot to foot, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her blazer. Through it all, Ava sat poised, her back straight, her robe tied neatly at her waist. She had allowed the storm to rage around her, but the time for silence was nearing its end. She closed her magazine, laid it gently on the side table, and rose to her feet. The movement alone was enough to draw the eyes of every person in the room. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was steady and clear. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," she said, her eyes fixed on the woman. The wealthy guest arched a brow. "Oh? And what's that supposed to mean?" Ava let a small pause fill the space before answering. It wasn't the pause of hesitation, it was the pause of control. Of someone choosing their moment. "It means," she said evenly, "that I am not here as a stranger. I'm here because this spa is mine to be in, just as much as it is yours." The manager froze. The guest blinked, confusion flickering across her face. The room seemed to inhale as one, waiting for what would come next. Ava folded her hands gently in front of her robe. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't needed to. The strength in her words was enough to shift the air. And soon, she would tell them exactly why. The wealthy guest let out a sharp laugh, mistaking Ava's calmness for bluff. "Yours to be in?" she sneered. "What are you, the masseuse? Or maybe housekeeping? Don't waste my time with." Her words faltered as Ava took a single step forward, her presence commanding without force. "My name," Ava said, her voice resonant though quiet, "is Ava Hudson. I am the co-founder of Elysian Spas and Wellness." The room froze. For a moment, silence hung heavy, broken only by the sound of the fountain trickling in the corner. Guests glanced at one another, eyes widening in recognition. They had read the brand story in glossy magazines, seen the headlines about two women who had transformed the luxury spa industry. The woman's mouth opened, then closed again. Her confidence drained, replaced by the flush of embarrassment rising across her face. Ava continued, her tone still measured. "This spa, this brand, this entire experience exists because I believed in it. I built it with my partner, brick by brick, detail by detail. So when you tell me I don't belong here, what you really mean is that you don't recognize the face of the person who gave you the very luxury you came to enjoy." A collective hush spread across the lounge. One guest slowly set down his teacup. Another murmured, "She's the Ava Hudson." The manager straightened, relief and pride washing over his expression. The receptionist looked down, hiding a smile. And the guest, once so loud, could only stare, her arrogance collapsing into shame. Ava didn't gloat. She simply stood there, radiating the quiet strength of someone who had fought battles far harsher than a public insult. The truth was out now. And it spoke louder than any accusation ever could. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The wealthy guest's face turned a shade of crimson that no expensive makeup could hide. She stammered, opening her mouth, but no words came. Then the silence cracked, first with a single clap. A man near the window, a regular client, began to applaud. Others followed, the sound spreading like a wave through the lounge. Soon the room echoed with warm, genuine applause, not the polite kind offered to a stranger, but the kind reserved for respect. The receptionist smiled openly now, her shoulders easing. The manager, clearly relieved, added his own firm applause. The guest fumbled, her voice small, the edge gone. I didn't realize. I'm so sorry, Ava raised a hand gently, cutting her off without harshness. Apologies aren't necessary, she said, her tone composed. What matters is remembering that dignity doesn't come from a membership fee. It's something every person deserves, no matter how they look, where they sit, or what they wear. The applause grew louder. Some guests nodded to her, others leaned forward as if grateful to be reminded of the values luxury so often forgot. The guest lowered her gaze, shrinking into her silk shawl. The power she had flaunted minutes earlier had dissolved, leaving her silent, chastened. Ava, meanwhile, settled back into her chair, every movement deliberate and serene. She didn't need to argue. She didn't need to raise her voice. She had spoken the truth, and the truth had done the rest. In that moment, the room no longer saw her as just a woman in a robe. They saw her as what she truly was, the visionary who had built the world they were sitting in. The applause eventually faded, replaced once again by the soft hum of the fountain and the calming music of the spa. Yet the atmosphere was forever changed. Guests leaned back into their chairs with a new reverence in their eyes, glancing toward Ava not with doubt but with admiration. The wealthy guest, red-faced and silent, slipped quietly out of the lounge. No dramatic exit this time, just the quiet shuffle of someone who had been stripped of her assumed power. A staff member approached Ava with a crystal glass of cucumber water. "Miss Hudson," the manager said with a respectful bow of his head, "please accept this, and our thanks, for your patience, and for everything you've built." Ava smiled gently as she accepted the drink. "No thanks needed. Just make sure every guest here feels valued. That's what this brand was meant for." She settled back into her chair, crossing her legs, the robe wrapping her in quiet elegance. To the outside world, it looked like she was simply another client enjoying a moment of calm. But to those in the room, she was unmistakably more. Later, stories of the encounter would spread online. Guests would recount how a wealthy woman tried to throw out the very founder of the spa she adored. Social media would buzz with praise for Ava's composure and strength. But Ava herself didn't dwell on it. She wasn't interested in public shame or viral stories. Her triumph was quieter, more personal. She had shown, once again, that power wasn't in raising your voice or showing your wealth, it was in knowing your worth, even when others tried to deny it. As she closed her eyes and leaned back into the comfort of the lounge chair, she allowed herself a small, peaceful smile. The spa around her was more than luxury, it was proof of her journey, her vision, and her unshakable dignity. And that, she thought, was the true meaning of exclusivity, not excluding others, but creating a space where everyone who entered felt they belonged.